I would like to introduce our next speaker, Jenny Wheatley, who is the president of Admission Masters. She's graduated from Johns Hopkins with a master's in education and was a former admission officer at UCLA, Johns Hopkins, and Harvard. Today's topic is strategy for admission to highly selective colleges. The most competitive colleges are only getting more selective. So how do students who get accepted to the Ivy League and the rest of the nation most selective college set themselves apart from the rest of the applicant pool? Learn the truth about college admissions and how to improve applicants' chances to make good decisions about where to invest your time and energy to get best admission results.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jenny. Welcome to the World Journal seminar. I'm very excited to be talking with you guys today. Without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started so I can kind of give you guys some more information. I do want to let you guys know that this entire seminar is going to be in English, but there are Chinese subtitles. So as long as you can read and follow along, I feel like it would be just as fine, not to worry. But for everybody else, welcome. Today, I'm going to be talking about the strategies for admissions to highly selective colleges. As you guys know, college admissions is getting a lot more challenging these days. And I want to kind of help you and give you some strategies and advice on how to make sure you get admitted to some of these highly selective colleges. So let's get started. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Admission Masters. So Admission Masters is named the #1 educational consulting organization. We have counselors and staff members who are former admission officers from universities across the nation. And that's what makes us so awesome. I think at the end of the day, we have counselors who have had real life experience as an admissions officer. I think that makes a really big difference in helping our students and kind of fulfilling their educational goals as well. We are the leader in college admissions and boarding school. We've been named that by many newspaper organizations across the nation. So very excited to be named the leader of college admissions. We have a team approach. So when you join Admission Masters, we are not one counselor doing everything for one student. We actually have an academic advisor, we have an extracurricular activity advisor, and we have other team members that will support you throughout the time. So if you're a STEM student, we'd be kind of focusing and supporting you with doing research opportunities. If you're humanities students, we will help you create blogs or other independent projects. So we have counselors who have very specific niche areas, and so we kind of work together as a team, and that's the part that we actually really love about Admission Masters. And we definitely believe that Admission Masters is not a one-size-fits-all. Education is not a one-size-fits-all. Everybody has different needs. Everyone has different interests. Everyone has different weaknesses and strengths. And so we want to make sure that we align to that. We want to make sure that students feel like they're getting support for things that they need support on. And that's where we kind of come in with the personalized program and the personalized approach for our students. So just really quickly, speaking from experience, I've had over a decade of college admissions experience, and I really learned that college admissions is all about strategy. It's about how you portray yourself on your application. It's about what you write in your essays, what activities you dedicate to throughout your high school, who your recommendation letters come from and what they say about you, your interviews, and from your interviews, finding your overall fit, your major choice. There's so many things that go into the puzzle piece of college admissions that I definitely feel like a lot of that is strategy, right? You could have done a lot of really amazing things throughout your high school journey, but how you strategically portray yourself in your applications, or how you strategically portray yourself in an interview or through your teacher recommendations, all of those things matter. And I'm going to talk about that today. So I'm very excited to dive into this. So let's go in without further ado. So these were the admissions results for 2022. You guys can kind of see from these different kind of colleges what the ultimate results were. I'm sorry, it's a little bit cut off here, but generally speaking, here's what you can kind of see in terms of rates. 2022, last year's admissions results were very difficult. You'll notice that Harvard was at 3%, Swarthmore 7%, Rice at 9%, Vanderbilt 6%, Yale 4%, right? Columbia 4%. You see a lot of these single digits with admission results, and unfortunately, it's only going to get worse with college admissions, continuously being test optional, which I'll talk about in a moment. A lot of these things are becoming more and more challenging for students to get accepted into, right? You not only have to have really great academics, but you have to have a lot of other things too. And these strategies, which what I'm going to talk about, is where those things come into play. How do I become in that 7%? How am I going to be aligned with that 8%, right? What am I going to do to make sure that I get included in that 3%? I'm going to talk about that today. Okay. So before I go into even further about college admissions and the strategies, I want to kind of tell you guys how admission officers make decisions. I think it's really important for you to know what admission officers do and how they make decisions. Now, I do want to mention, just as a little bit of background information, not every college is exactly like this. Every college is a little bit different in their admissions process and how their admissions decisions are made. But generally, it goes a little something like this, okay? It's very similar in this way. So let's start. When you submit your application, the very first thing that happens is that there is the first reader. It's a first admissions reader. And actually, I saw a statistic that more and more top tier, competitive colleges are actually hiring more and more outside readers because they're having so many applications that the admission officers can't do the work all by themselves, reviewing and sorting these admissions and applications. And so they're hiring these outside readers. So those people are actually the first readers, right? So first readers, the admission readers, spend about 15 minutes determining your scores, your grades, to see if it's worth reviewing the rest of your application. Basically, they'll be putting kind of an academic index score of every single applicant. They'll say, this applicant, yes, I want them to go to the second reader. Some first readers will be like, yeah, the student is not worth continuing in the admissions process. They'll make that decision with the first 15-minute read that they have, which they'll look at your academics, they'll look at your extracurricular activities, they'll look at everything very quickly and briefly and kind of come to that decision. I know this part kind of is sad because you as students, you've been working throughout your entire high school journey to get your applications read in 15 minutes, but it's the reality with the number of applications that there are. We do need to kind of move and sort through these very quickly. So it's unfortunate, but it is what happens. Now, when it gets to the second reader, it's more of that evaluation. The second reader will look at the first reader's notes. What did the first reader say about you? What did they say about your academics? What did they say about your extracurricular activities? And they'll make some more evaluative decisions, right? They'll also add some additional perspectives that the first reader was not able to provide, and they'll make commentary notes on your application, such as, yes, we should accept this student, yes, we should reject this student, or we should waitlist this student. I would say most applications do go into the second round, just because the first readers are just kind of sorting and reviewing the materials. The second reader is kind of taking a look at it and making some more evaluative comments on it. So it does end up, a lot of students do end up going into that second reader round. And then most applications, of those second reader applications, I would say a little over half of them will go into committee. Now, again, this depends on the college. It's very possible that only a small percentage end up going to the committee based on the school. It's also possible that only 30 or 40% go into the committee, or the majority. But at the colleges that I worked at, I would say about half of the students end up going into the committee round. So the committee round is all about discussing and voting on the students that made it to the committee. It's usually about 5 to 10 minute discussion on individual applications that readers could not make a final decision on. So the second reader looked at your application and they're like, oh, I don't know if I want to accept the student, reject the student, or waitlist student. I need this person to go to committee so that they can have a further discussion on it. So admission readers, senior officers, dean of admissions, dean of departments sometimes will also participate in the committee discussions, and we'll have a roundtable discussion. And we will talk about the student. Hey, this is a student that I really like. You know, here are their qualities. Well, actually, we have to not be subjective. So we'll say, here are the facts about the student. Here are the things that, you know, we find valuable about the student, or why we think that the student would be ideal for our college. And then we would vote. Raise your hand if you would like to vote for the student, accept, reject, waitlist, and then that is how sometimes the decisions are made. So this is an entire process for college admissions committee. And a lot of times, you know, when you apply early, November 1st deadline, and the decisions have to come by December 15th, we sometimes have to move through these applications very quickly. That's generally how that happens in the admissions field. So a little bit of kind of tips and summary. Admission reading process of selective schools are remarkably similar. I would say a lot of the Ivy Leagues approach it very similar to this, having experienced admissions from public schools and private schools as well. I would say I've seen something very similar to this. It's just a matter of how quickly it moves from one reader to another. And it's also a matter of the point system that college admissions, like different colleges have different point systems based on that. How admission decisions are made. By the way, if you are a student or a parent right now that's feverishly writing questions for me to answer, this is a recorded version of the seminar. So at the very end, or you can actually use this QR code, which I'll blow up a little bit later. On there, I have a link where you can ask questions to me. It'll say, if you click on the link, one of the links will say World Journal Seminar Q&A, WJ Seminar Q&A. If you click on that link and you submit your questions, I will look through all of the questions and I will email you personally the response that I have to your question. So I apologize that I cannot live answer Q&A right now because this is a recorded version. Please feel free to go into the QR code and there is a link that says WJ Seminar Q&A, and you can click on that. This is just for my World Journal Seminar attendees. You can ask your questions. It'll come directly to me. I will email you personally the answers that I have, and you can ask the questions in Chinese or English. I have interpreters and translators that can help me with that as well. Okay, so back to this, your application is read quickly. So like I said, you know, that's why I say admissions is all about strategy, because how you strategically add your information into your application is the way that it's going to get read. Right. And so because it takes 15 minutes, 10 minutes for deliberation, 15 minutes to review your application, how you portray yourself in your application is so important. So I'm going to talk about the strategies today. I also want you guys to know that admission officers are real people like you and me, right? They are not robots. And so people, unfortunately, as much as we're trained to not be subjective, we are human. And so how we emotionally connect with the applicant could be how you portray yourself in your application. So that's where your essays and your teacher recommendation letters are really important, right? Because those are going to show me how I'm going to connect with you as an admission officer. So unfortunately, you know, like I said, we are human. There's some subjective, emotional connections that we can make as admission officers, and how you pull on our heartstrings are going to be kind of important in the admissions, even if we try to be as objective as possible. Quantitative scoring is used, but the process is very qualitative and subjective. So that's what I wanted to mention. We do have scoring systems like academic scoring out of 5 or academic scoring out of 7, where we look at your GPA and your test scores and the rigor of your courses and create a score based on that. We look at your extracurricular activities, your leadership, your uniqueness, all of that, and create a score out of that. Yes, we score these things quantitatively, but ultimately the review of everything is very qualitative. It's holistic and very subjective because, like I said, we're human and that's how we make decisions. Okay. So I wanted to talk about test optional because, as you guys may or may not know, I have students who live in the Inland Valley and in LA where they say the August SAT was canceled for them and there was no testing center within 100 miles of where they live. Admission officers recognize this, and with the aftermath of COVID kind of continuing, I feel like a lot of schools are still very much test optional. Of course, there are schools that are like, nope, we're not test optional anymore, we're test required. Some schools have moved to test blind, but a lot of schools are still very much test optional. That includes Ivy Leagues as well. So test optional, a lot of top colleges and universities, they want to admit students who are beyond just good grades and rigorous programs, that they demonstrate their intellectual engagement well beyond the classroom and have made truly meaningful impacts in their schools and communities. So with that in mind, I just want you guys to know that test optional basically gives admission officers the opportunity to look beyond those test scores, to look beyond just your academics and holistically on the type of person that you are, but in an intellectual way, right? So if your test scores are missing because you've gone test optional this year for some of your schools, or you did not do well on some of your tests, like your SATs or ACTs, you didn't score very well, and so you decide you're not going to submit them at all, they're going to look at other elements of your academics to see if you are academically capable to do well at their school too. So they're going to look at your GPA, they're going to look at the rigor of your courses, they're going to look at maybe some other community college or college level courses that you took outside of school. They'll look at how you engaged intellectually with the things that you're passionate about by looking at, those elements if your test scores are not provided. So let me just kind of show you really quickly what this would ultimately look like. So test scores or no test scores, students who have good test scores, you can elevate your academic information beyond your transcript, right? So if you're submitting really good AP scores, if you're submitting really good SAT or ACT scores, it's going to give admission officers one more level of understanding of your academic capabilities beyond just your classes and your grades, right? So you could be seen as someone who is more academically competitive if your scores are better than other students who are admitted to the school. So basically, when they're looking at the academic achievement, you can kind of notice in these charts, right, what level of point system and point value that they're going to give you based on your scores. So if you look at this side over here, if your academic achievement rating, we give you 5 points, you had a GPA of a 3.9 or higher, unweighted, you're in the top 2% of your class rank, you're top 10% of your class rank for 51 to 100%. So this is 0 to 5%, 50%, right? You have a SAT score 1500 or above, right? Subject score, so on and so forth, right? They'll look at this and your program is most demanding. So if you are a 5, right, in your academic rating, basically we recognize that you are extremely impressive and you clearly demonstrate intellectual qualities. Exactly the reason why, if you've gotten a 1520 or 1540 on your SAT score, and you're one of those students who are like, I'm going to take it again, or parents who are like, you need to take it again to get it closer to 1600. This is the reason why you don't need to. Because you will still get an academic achievement rating of a 5 if you hit all of these categories and your test score for your SATs are above a 1500, right? You fall into the same academic category as 5. As someone who got a 1520 and a 1600, you're going to get into the same academic achievement rating for a lot of these colleges. So spend your time doing other things that are not necessarily improving your test scores to try to get to 1600, because it's not going to make that much of a difference in your college admissions. Okay. So if you did not have test scores, right? If you have no test scores, you didn't submit any of your SAT or ACT, you decided to go with a test optional, really your transcript is going to be the star of the show, right? Your GPA is going to be the determining factor in showing your academic capability. And then your activity list, your essays, your teacher recommendations, your demonstrated interest, your interviews, those are going to be weighed way more heavily because you don't have those test scores. So they're going to look at some other elements. Okay, well, if you don't have test scores, what other areas have you improved yourself in, right? Have you shown me so that I can be impressed by you as a student? So you can kind of see the non-academic achievement rating, right? If you have national or international level achievement, and you have 4 or more areas of significant achievement, you will be a 5. These areas will be a lot more heavily weighted if you don't have these test scores available, right? But that doesn't mean that your chances of getting accepted into a college would be lower just because you don't have a test score. You just need to make sure that you are impressive in other areas so that you balance the fact that you don't have a test score. Okay, so let's talk about some of these extra factors. So obviously, you know, some of these admission changes are due to the pandemic. There's 20% more first-generation applicants last year, 70% of students who still submitted test scores to test optional colleges. So there are, at UPenn specifically, 70% of their admitted students still submitted a test score, even if they were test optional. So I know a lot of colleges say that they're test optional, but if you have more and more students that are still submitting test scores, even if the school is test optional, that does influence what type of students that they end up choosing. And 90% increased level of competition in the top 30 colleges on US News. So competition is getting much harder. So the things that you need to get from this, selective colleges, they have to be really selective about their applicants. With more first-generation applicant students that are applying to colleges, colleges are going to have a slight preference towards first-generation students. First-generation students means you are the first in your family to attend a university. That is first generation, right? So first-generation students, you know, they have to take that into consideration. And test optional means test optional unless a majority of those students who are admitted are submitting test scores. So like UPenn, for example, they are test optional, but if 70% of their admitted students submitted a test score, are they really test optional, right? Because they have to compete against students who submitted test scores, even if they're test optional. So if you're in that group of students who didn't submit a test score, and you're competing against students who did, right? You know, how would that kind of influence you? So you just have to keep that in mind. Don't forget about my other slide, my previous slide about if you decide that you're not submitting a test score, where and what areas do you need to make sure that you are still showing that you are an impressive applicant? That part is really important. Okay, so let's talk strategy. Now that you understand how decisions are being made at selective colleges, let's talk about the top 3 strategies that you can use to take advantage of your college applications and your high school journey. So strategy number 1, selecting the right courses and activities. Strategy number 2, choosing the right topic for your essays when you're applying to colleges. And strategy number 3, knowing how to portray yourself on the application. So let me dive in to these strategies so you are aware. Okay. Strategy number 1, selecting the right courses and activities. Starting from the summer of your 8th grade, you should have a general idea of if you want to go into a humanities or a STEM field, okay? With that being said, most of our students at Admission Masters by the end of 10th grade or their second semester of 10th grade have a general idea of what direction major that they're going to go into, okay? But knowing that direction, you need to choose courses that are rigorous. You need to choose courses that are major focused, and you need to show the upward progression through the 4 years that you attended high school. So if you took 1 honors class and 1 AP class your freshman year, you should be taking 2 or 3 honors classes and 2 or 3 AP classes your sophomore year, right? That progression, that upward progression to your courses and your course schedule is important. And that's what we're talking about in terms of rigor. Your activities should also be major focused, right? They should also be showing your dedication, your compassion, your leadership, your passion, your uniqueness factor, right? All of those things need to be added into your activities. And if you think about your common application specifically, consider what your top 10 activities are going to be. So here's an example of a student, and you can tell very easily what the student wants to do in their major just by looking at their first 4 activities. Being the Orange County Club Model United Nations President and Captain, the Mock Trial Team Co-Captain, the Link Crew Coordinator and Officer, and the Patriots for Progress Co-Founder and Leader. Looking at these 4, you can kind of tell that the students maybe wants to go into political science, something that's related to making an impact in their community using policy-related activities, right? That's very clear just by looking at their first 4 activities, but also you can see their impact, right? 9th to 12th grade, 11th and 12th grade, and the leadership positions that they've had in just the top 4 activities. That's what you want to think about when you're thinking about your activities here as well. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our students find their focus, the direction of their activities by their 10th grade and their major, so that they can plan their summer based on their passions, and they can select higher level courses based on the passion and major direction they want to go into as well. Strategy number 2 is choosing the right topic for your essays. Colleges see essays and activities and awards on your application. Your essays are an opportunity to tell your story. It needs to be personal, right? Your Common App personal statement, the main essay that goes to all of the Common Applications, should not be a time that you talk about your grades. It should not be a time that you talk about your major. It should not be a time that you talk about your activities if it's repetitive of what you already mentioned in your application. It should actually be an opportunity that you talk about something personal. Give me opportunities as an admission officer to get to know your characteristics, your personality, right? Your challenges, how you overcame those challenges over time, who you are today because of the experiences that you had in the past. That's what I want to see, which takes me to growth and learning, right? Colleges want to see students who are constantly pursuing their personal growth. They want you to show your growth and your desire to learn. How have you grown over time? As I said earlier, who are you today because of the experiences that you've had in the past is what they want to see. And lastly, impact and uniqueness. You want to find a topic that's going to show your impact, whether that's going to be your future impact, how you're going to make an impact in the future after college, and your uniqueness. Or it could be current impact, right? What kind of impact have you had currently? And your uniqueness, how you stand out amongst other applicants is important. Really separate yourself from other students. Think about these topics now. If you're a 9th grader, a 10th grader listening to this seminar, literally, you should start reflecting and thinking about what topics you want to have now, because when you get to your senior year, or what experiences you want right now so that you can write about it in your essays in the future. Because if you're a senior and you're trying to think about this now, it might be a little bit harder to do. So start early. I would say that's my biggest recommendation. Okay, so for the common application, my main and final strategy is the 5 main factors in the common application that you need to consider is the activity section, the additional information section, the demonstrated interest section, your essays, and your teacher recommendation. So this part right here is the teacher recommendation chart that admission officers will get when they fill this out, right? Teacher recommendations and college recommendations, counselor recommendations are not simply just writing an essay. They also have to answer questions like, what is this level, the student's level of academic achievement, right? What is their level of motivation? And they'll be able to try to provide, oh, I think this person is in the top 5% or top 1% or top 10%, right? And this is important. So showing these characteristics and qualities to your teachers early on is going to be really valuable. I talked about the activity section already and how you're going to be showing the descriptions in the activities section. That part is going to be really important. And the additional information section, Common Application still gives you a section for you to talk about COVID-19 impacts, but they also have another section where you can talk about additional information. What you put in there is also going to be really important. Are you going to be adding information that you couldn't add in your Common Application activity section? Are you going to be telling me about summer programs that you got accepted into but couldn't attend because of COVID, right? What types of things are you going to be putting in this additional information section is going to be important. The demonstrated interest in the Common Application, there is a contact section for each of the colleges where they ask you, how did you learn about our school? And they give you 10 slots to tell us how you learned about the school, right? While that is also for survey purposes, it also gives them information about how many things you were involved in to show me demonstrated interest. Did you go to a virtual information session? Did you go on a college tour? Did you visit our college before? Are you getting emails from our college and are you opening those up? All of those things are going to matter. And then of course the essays and teacher recommendations. So the biggest thing I want to tell you guys is that success is a journey. It's not a destination, right? The doing is often more important than the outcome. And the people who will be on your journey with you will change you for a lifetime. And Admission Masters really wants to be on that journey with you, right? This journey is a long-term journey, right? Getting to what you want to do in the future, getting to those opportunities and your successes, the journey of what you do throughout that time is really what matters, right? So going and making sure that you do this, being a part of that and letting us be a part of that journey is something that we definitely want to pursue. This was only a 30-minute seminar, so I apologize that I moved very quickly, but I wanted to give you guys some good information that you can check out. Here is the QR code that I talked about. If you guys go onto this QR code, you will be looking at all of our links. And at the very bottom, you can sign up for a free consultation. We will give you guys a free consultation to all of our World Journal Seminar attendees if you are interested in talking with a counselor and asking questions. And below the free consultation, you'll also see a Q&A link. And if you had questions about this seminar or just questions at all that you'd like me to answer, feel free to click on that and ask your questions and I will answer them specifically for you. Once again, I just want to say thank you guys so much for joining me for the World Journal Seminar. I hope this was really helpful, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.